Hey, how you doing? My name is Ryan, and today I'm reviewing the first ever LEGO Fantastic Four set and finding out who made the best minifigures of Marvel's first family. So this is set 76316, Fantastic Four vs. Galactus Construction Figure. 427 pieces, $60 retail price. The concept of the set is pretty straightforward. It's a buildable action figure of Galactus and minifigures of the Fantastic Four. So let's start the review by looking at Galactus himself. The building process was really simple and rather satisfying, with the limbs not being too repetitive, as is the case with some buildable figures and mech suits. The curved panel used for the face is a printed piece which is appreciated, and even the stickers that make up the skirt were all saved for last. Psychologically, this makes the stickers feel less important because the majority of the build is already done by the time you peel your first sticker off that sheet. I also love the fluidity of movement here. The torso can turn smoothly, the joints in the legs and arms are nice too, but my favorite detail is the head movement, where there is this large gap beneath the head in between the shoulders. At first it might look a little bit off, almost like a mistake, like you're missing a piece, but then you realize this Galactus figure was designed to look down, really far down. The scale difference between the build and figures was taken into account when refining the poses and play mechanics of Galactus, and that is the level of detail and forethought we'd expect as LEGO fans from a big name IP like Marvel or the Fantastic Four. Galactus fits nicely into my acrylic cases alongside other taller characters like Arishem and Giant Man. And while cross-set scaling does not exist, I mean Galactus is the same size as Giant Man here, perhaps Galactus will change sizes in the Fantastic Four movie, going from celestial space god to just really tall robot man. But now that Galactus is safe in his display case, let's talk minifigures, probably the real reason a lot of people bought this set. I'm pitting the long-awaited LEGO Fantastic Four figures up against two other versions of these heroes. First contender, my customs. Now these are not the same as my first attempt at the MCU Fantastic Four, as those designs were based more so on the Valentine's Day poster and not the final costume. And while I did redo my customs once the trailer came out, I decided not to alter my designs once the official LEGO figures were unveiled because I did not want my customs being influenced by the actual LEGO designs. But the second contender here are these off-brand custom figures made by a company called G. I think it's a rebrand of XINH, but I'm not sure. Now, a word of note here, I can't guarantee these G figures are original designs, as sometimes these off-brand companies can just copy what other people do, recreate them, and sell them for dirt cheap. Also, I can't guarantee these figures are dirt cheap anymore. The various international trade policies as of late have made it costly to import these figures, so if I'm extra critical of these G designs, it's because I didn't buy them for 89 cents per figure. In fact, this set of Fantastic Four customs go for upwards of $40 on Mercari. That's dangerously close to LEGO's actual pricing for figures. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised in a month or so if you could buy the actual LEGO Fantastic Four figures for around $40 off of Bricklink. But the question is, who made the best Fantastic Four figures? LEGO, G, or me? Let's start first by comparing figures of Reed Richards himself, Mr. Fantastic. The off-brand has arm printing and leg printing coverage, but the design on the torso and legs feel a bit overly busy. Look at the amount of lines on the belt and legs. It leaves the figure with little to no negative space. On the flip side, my design airs a bit too simple. With the straight lines and bare logo, it might be minimalist, but it also feels like a superhero suit. The LEGO rendition balances the level of detail well, but the curved lines and rounded accents make the outfit look like a Fantastic Four branded knitted sweater, rather than a superhero costume. It looks closer to merchandise you'd buy at Disney World than an MCU superhero suit. Now we all pick different colors between blue, dark azure, and medium blue, but they all kind of work. There are moments from the trailer showing different lighting schemes, making these costumes look like each of these color schemes. So there's no clear winner there, but what about the legs? This is a personal preference, but I think mine are the best. The LEGO version are blank, and the off-brand is way too busy with detail lines. And if you're curious where I found these legs, they're from Antoni Porowski from Queer Eye, with the extra print erased off. But now, let's move on to the face. I like the LEGO one. It's a brand new print, but it oddly looks more like the character Mr. Fantastic than Pedro Pascal. I'm fully aware that's a very weird thing to say considering Pedro Pascal is playing Mr. Fantastic, but look at the off-brand for example. That head looks identical to Pedro Pascal. The eyebrows, the frown, the wider mouth, it's great. Yeah, the proportions are a little bit off like most off-brand figures, but the design is really terrific. I went with the Din face from Mandalorian, which should look like Pedro Pascal, but oddly doesn't when put next to the off-brand figure. And as for the hair, I'm the only one to have the silver streaks in the hair, so I'm giving myself the win there. But out of these three figures, which one's the best Mr. Fantastic? Well, I think it's a combination of all the elements. I think the Lego torso, off-brand head, and my hair make for a great combination. And just to note for these composite shots, I'm digitally altering the color of the parts to all match the dark azure that LEGO uses in their official figure. So that's the best Mr. Fantastic in my opinion, but what about his wife, Sue Storm the Invisible Woman? Who made the best one there? Starting with the torso, the LEGO one is oddly missing the typical female curves and shadows most female figures have. Now that could be an intentional design choice and a questionable one if that, but the cynic in me thinks it's LEGO's way of avoiding having to make an extra new torso for this set. You only need two, the one for Reed with the blue collar and the one with the white collar for the other three members of the Fantastic Four. The off-brand torso though has those female elements and a lot more in terms of detail and shading. The thinner curved lines and shading under the chest would work better if the torso was a lighter color like my medium blue. The lines are more pronounced on mine, but I think the chest accent lines are way too high up. The belt design on my custom is a touch thin, and honestly, the LEGO version of the belt is perfect design and size-wise. So the battle of the torso designs is kind of a mixed bag, but what about the legs? Well, I think there's a clear winner here, and it's me. The official legs are blank, the off-brand legs are over-designed, and mine not only have the white boots but also an invisible leg gimmick. Now you can switch out the legs for a normal Sue Storm, but having the option to showcase the powers physically in the figure is a really cool gimmick in my mind. Now both the off-brand and LEGO figure have clear dish pieces as energy shields, but I went the extra mile with an invisible arm and leg. You know, cause she's the Invisible Woman, she turns invisible, that's part of her power set. But speaking of appearances, what about the face? Looking over these three figures, I don't think any of us got it perfectly. The LEGO head is really common but applicable print, mine is just a bit more unique and snarky, and the off-brand is just a generic angry female face. No clear winner so far, but I saw a few people use Penny's head from the Big Bang Theory set, and that's a great choice in my mind. The hair is certainly best on the LEGO official version. I like the tan color scheme, and it is closest to the look of Vanessa Kirby. I may have been influenced by the LEGO Marvel video game with my pick of hair color with that bright yellow. So looking over our three contenders, which is the best Sue Storm minifigure? This is a tough one because the legs are best on mine, the torso I think none of us got perfectly, but I think the design of the off-brand on the dark azure of the LEGO figure would work well. So here's my digital rendering of the perfect Sue Storm minifigure with all the parts the same color. But now we move on to Sue Storm's hot-headed brother, Johnny Storm. Who made the best Human Torch minifigure? The LEGO torso here I think is the best, despite being a repeat of Sue's torso. Then again, this design works better on Johnny than it does for Sue, except for the arms. Johnny's costume in the film has more white than blue on the arms, but the LEGO figure just has blue. I think this comes down to budget again, as LEGO didn't want to have to make multiple versions of this torso for the set. Even if the arms are pre-existing parts and the torso was already made, combining them together would slow down production just that much that it might cost LEGO more than it's worth. Now the off-brand has some very nice arm printing, but I wonder if a full white arm works better. Also, I have a firearm on my custom, and I always love when figures showcase their powers. But that element is where the off-brand shines the most. The fire boot attachments are incredible on the off-brand figure and beautifully showcase the Human Torch's flame-on ability. As for the head and hair, I think I prefer my head with the LEGO hair. So for the best Johnny Storm figure, LEGO hair, my head, LEGO torso with white arms, my legs, and off-brand fire effects. And finally, our last member of the Fantastic Four, Ben Grimm. Who made the best Thing minifigure? Well, the off-brand figure's torso is a bit over-designed with too many lines. The LEGO torso is certainly better than mine, however, there's a bigger issue with all these Ben Grimm minifigures, and that's his size. The off-brand is a plain figure with no augmentations. LEGO's figure tries to go wider with larger hands, and mine tries to go taller with avatar legs and arms. Ben Grimm really could have used a big fig or special mold, even if the scale isn't entirely film accurate. Now, having a mid-sized or big fig would have certainly ballooned the budget of this set. Would it have been worth it? I think so. However, I do also think there's a solution in these three figures with a combination of elements, but before we get to that, let's get the face right. LEGO's design is pretty terrific, and the rock headpiece is a great touch. The coloring is also spot on. My design is pretty good, but goes for a more comic book orange. It's a bit jarring, but the smirk is very good. The printing quality on the off-brand figure really holds this design back, making all of the detail blurry and kind of illegible. So LEGO wins for best head and hair, but what's the best Ben Grimm figure overall? Well, I think it's a combination of the LEGO head, rock hairpiece, and torso, my avatar arms and legs, and the LEGO's larger fist. I think this gives Ben Grimm some needed stature both vertically and horizontally. It's certainly not as good as what could have been a mid-sized figure like Hagrid or even a Big Fig, but for what LEGO decided to do, I think it does the trick without adding too many new elements. Honestly, it just looks nice having the thing be a little bit taller than every other member on the team. But speaking of the team as a whole, who made the best set of Fantastic Four figures? I'll commend the off-brands for the print coverage and accessories, but the designs don't really do it for me. My torso designs are a touch simple, but I do love the scale of the thing, as well as the fiery and invisible limbs on Johnny and Sue. The LEGO torsos are pretty great, and the new faces for Reed and Ben are fantastic, no pun intended. Often with LEGO Marvel, it's not the designs that are bad per se, it's that these figures need more to be great, and that's not an art issue, it's a budget issue. I'm sure the pros at LEGO would have loved to have new heads for Sue and Johnny, or give dual molded legs to everyone, but I'm sure the designers were told you can make 4 new figure pieces maximum, and they had to plan accordingly. Could LEGO have found a better way to give Mr. Fantastic stretchy legs, or maybe brought back the long rubber arms? Or maybe make Ben a larger mid-fig, or gave Johnny white arms, or have given all the characters dual molded legs? Certainly. But in order to do so, LEGO would have had to raise the price of this set above $60, and the backlash would have probably been worse than it already is now for a set people think is a little bit overpriced. Unfortunately, LEGO deciding to save money might cost you a bit if you want to upgrade Marvel's first family. The only dual molded legs in dark azure with white boots come from Condiment King from the LEGO Batman movie, and he runs around $20 per figure. Even worse, you can't just buy the legs because only 3 or so are available for sale. That's a major bummer for purist custom creators, and people that want to make the perfect Fantastic Four figures might need to wait for a site like Firestar Toys to make their upgrade pack, which for a lot of people is a good price, but for some might be a bit too expensive. So, the Fantastic Four versus Galactus Construction Figure. It's a solid LEGO Marvel set with some okay figures with room for upgrades, and an honestly great Galactus build. The more I play around with the Devourer of Worlds, the more I think he's the best part of this set. That being said, there is something really special about finally having official LEGO Fantastic Four minifigures in my Marvel display cases, and posing the group with Spider-Man, X-Men, and the Avengers makes me smile. But what do you think of LEGO's first rendition of Marvel's first family? Do you think they're worth the wait and the price? As always, big thank you to my channel members, including new additions, Shaka X, Schmidt20, and Hussein Al Jabouri. You guys are incredible. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. You help make videos like this possible. And as always, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.